Can the Northern Lights fuel paranormal activity? Stay tuned after this. What's up, Grayson Report? I hope I find you well. I've got this cool little article. I'm sure everyone is aware that last weekend we were hit with a I want to say it's a gift, because how many people can say they've seen the Northern Lights? But we were able to see the Northern Lights in some parts of California. I know up north my stepsister had posted some beautiful pictures that she had seen. Unfortunately, I did not get a chance to see them, but I did find an article that said how the Northern Lights could have fueled paranormal activity. Before we get into that, I do have a little article from the Washington Post that kind of explained what happened last weekend, just to give a little insight. So, these northern and southern lights, set off by a once in a generation geomagnetic storm, amazed skywatchers and left scientists in awe. They were so extraordinary and rare that there's no telling when the next opportunity for such a spectacle will come. Friday night's storm reached superstorm level, something that happens roughly 1 in 20 years on average, said Matthew Owens, a space physicist at the University of Reading. That doesn't necessarily mean we'll have to wait 20 years for the next one. That's an average rate, and these things are quasi random. The next one could be next week or in 50 years, he said. Whereas auras are typically confined to Earth's polar region, social media posts showed Friday night's display was seen in all 50 states, as well as rare places like Puerto Rico, the Bahamas, Italy, Austria, Mexico, and India. In the southern hemisphere, people photographed them in Chile, Argentina, New Zealand, and Australia. It lit up the sky globally. The world was reporting it, said Sean Dell, the service coordinator for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Space Weather Prediction Center. So, like I was saying earlier, I did not get a chance to see it, but I was able to see all those beautiful pictures on social media. But do you guys think that the Northern Lights can fuel paranormal activity? Let's dive into that article. This article is from Higgy Pop, and it is how the Northern Lights could have fueled paranormal activity. Over the weekend, sky gazers across the UK were treated to a spectacular sight of the Northern Lights, a rare sight in the skies above most of Britain. The stunning visuals not only caught the imagination of those who saw them, but also sparked discussion in the paranormal community. Some ghost hunters believe that the celestial displays could have heightened paranormal activity during this time. This theory stems from a common belief among paranormal researchers that ghosts draw energies from their surroundings to manifest or interact with the physical world. I do believe that. This energy is often thought to come from electrical sources, human emotions, or environmental factors. Therefore, an event as powerful as the aurora borealis might provide just such a boost. I've never experienced this, but I have seen paranormal investigators reaction when they are trying to investigate a haunted location and make contact with the spirit world, and how their energy is drained. And I've also seen where thing like the battery gets drained off of equipment, or something gets turned off. So I do believe that ghosts do draw energies from their surroundings. So this is a big possibility, and this is a huge event. So it's plausible. I think it's plausible. The northern lights are caused by solar flares, which are eruptions of charged particles from the sun. These energetic solar winds interact with the Earth's magnetosphere, resulting in vibrant displays. This influx of solar energy is believed by some to potentially affect levels of paranormal activity. Various cultures have their own interpretations of the northern lights, often attributing supernatural significance to them. For example, in some indigenous cultures in North America, the northern lights are believed to be the spirits of ancestors playing in the sky. In Norse mythology, the lights are thought to be reflections from the shield and armor of the Valkyries, the warrior maidens who escort fallen soldiers to Valhalla. Ooh, I like that one. While it is true that solar flares do indeed bring significant amount of energy to Earth, it's important to understand what kind of energy we're talking about and how it interacts when it gets here. After all, we are bombarded by plenty of energy from the sun in the form of heat every day. If we suspect the solar flares can increase ghostly goings ons, then shouldn't we consider the fact that the same is true for sunlight? Thermal energy from the sun primarily arrives in the form of infrared, visible, and ultraviolet light. Of course, we know this is a pretty powerful source of energy, so it could be argued that a sunny day has a much impact on ghosts as solar flares. The energy from solar flares and the solar wind is more intense but are intermittent intense bursts that are less continuous than sunlight. It is also quite different from the thermal and light energy provided by the sun during the day. A sunny day delivers energy mainly as visible light and heat, whereas solar flares can bombard the earth with radio waves, gamma radiation, and X ray radiation. The idea that ghosts can harness energy from the environment is speculative. Even if we assume that paranormal entities can draw on ambient energy, there's nothing to suggest that the type of energy delivered by solar flares would be suitable. For instance, when considering radio waves, ghostly activity doesn't seem to increase if walkie talkies are used during an investigation. However, we do know that the energy carried by solar flares is less accessible to paranormal entities. Upon arriving at Earth, the energy of solar flares is mostly absorbed by the upper atmosphere where the light display is seen and does not directly affect surface conditions like sunlight does. Therefore, while the energy of solar flares is vast, their accessibility to any paranormal forces at ground level would likely be minimal. Something else to consider is that while sightings of the northern lights are rare across the UK, they are frequently witnessed in high latitude regions near the Arctic Circle. Countries like Norway, Sweden, Finland, Canada, and parts of Russia often experience these spectacular light displays. So, shouldn't this mean that reports of ghosts are higher in these places? Many of these regions do have rich traditions of folklore and supernatural tales, but there is nothing to suggest that these areas experience more paranormal activity due to the auras. Of course, any link between sightings of ghosts and the northern lights could be explained through more down to earth causes. The awe inspiring nature of these celestial displays could psychologically prime individuals to be more open to paranormal experiences. How so? The excitement and heightened motion state might lead to more reports of ghost sightings, not because of increased paranormal activity, but due to heightened human perception and imagination. This doesn't necessarily mean there's more ghostly activity. Rather, it could suggest that people are more attuned to their surroundings and more susceptible to interpreting ambiguous stimuli as paranormal. So, are they saying that because we by seeing the northern lights, we have excitement and a heightened emotional state, so it makes us more aware of our surroundings and more open to what is around us? Hmm. It could also be that solar flares are causing some of the devices typically used by ghost hunters to false trigger the most susceptible to this world be the REM pod. REM pods, or radiating EM proximity detectors, create a static electromagnetic field around themselves and are designed to detect disturbances within this field. Considering flares can disrupt satellites, radio communication, and even ground based electrical systems due to the intense burst of electromagnetic energy and charged particles they emit, it's plausible that they could cause false triggers in devices like REM pods. Note to self, do not use a REM pod during a northern light or solar flare disturbance. Similarity, other ghost hunting equipment like electromagnetic field meters, which are used to detect changes in electromagnetic fields, might also be susceptible to fluctuations caused by solar flares. Devices that rely on sensitive electronics or radio frequencies could experience anomalies or operational issues during periods of intense solar activity. So it's basically saying during like the northern lights or solar flare disturbance, basically your equipment, your ghost hunting equipment, will give you false information. So obviously, I guess during these times, it would be best not to perform an investigation. There's one final thought to consider. Might People see more ghosts when the northern lights are visible in the sky because the ghosts come out to watch the spectacle too. Many stories about ghosts describe them as exhibiting behaviors similar to those they had in life. These include walking familiar paths, visiting loved ones, and even partaking in activities they once enjoyed. If we entertain the idea that spirits retain some levels of consciousness and curiosity, it's conceivable that they might be as intrigued by the northern lights as we were at this weekend. Guys, comment below if you were able to see the northern lights, and also, do you think the northern lights um fuel paranormal activity? By reading this article, I don't think it does, but I do believe, as I stated previously, that ghosts do use energy around them because of what I've seen. I've never experienced it myself, but of what I've seen where people have experienced their devices, the battery going low, devices turning off, feeling tired or nauseous during an investigation. So I do believe in that. I don't think, after what I'm reading, it seems like the northern lights would cause false information if you're using your equipment. So that would be one thing we shouldn't do during one of these spectacles, is do not ghost hunt, obviously, and do not use a REM pod or an EMF meter. It's also saying that it can affect you too as well because of the excitement. So maybe don't just enjoy the beautiful northern lights and leave the ghost hunting for a different day. And as always, guys, I do go live every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This week, I will be out of town from so this Thursday, which will be the 16th, and this Saturday, which I believe will be the May 18th. I will not be going live, but I will have videos popping up throughout the week to keep you occupied. So be there, be squared, stay spooky, guys, and sweet nightmares. And I will see you on the next one.